my lessons or classes this week.
Maybe turn that light off.
Yeah, it'd probably help. Thank you. Okay. I'm trying something new. I have, it's called a drawing tablet, and it works better in some cases or some situations than it does others. I haven't tried it in Math for Health Professions. And you don't have to be a backseat Baptist, and don't take that offensively. I am a backseat Baptist. I sit on the back row in every church I'm in. I just don't like being right up front where everybody can stare at the back of my head.
That's me too.
But you know, you can move forward. We have seats that people won't be staring at the back of your head.
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
I had when I taught high school one year, I got tired. Of course, we're talking about a class of 12, 15 high school students, generally juniors or seniors is what I had. And they'd be sitting in the back of the room and they didn't care. It was math. So I got them to sit in a U shape, and I pulled all their desks to where we made a little U shape around my overhead. Y'all know what an overhead is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so I could reach out and more or less touch each one of them. They could not go to sleep.
They love that.
They actually did. They got more into the lesson and more involved with it. So yeah, it worked out really well. And if I go back to high school and have that situation and we don't have COVID restrictions, I'll do it again. Hopefully, dear Lord, I don't want to go back to teaching high school. I like the college level. All right, so with Reconstitution, we're mixing medications. And a lot of times the medications are dry powder, and you got to add water to them to make them liquid. But sometimes it's a real high concentrated liquid. And I use two different examples when I'm talking about this, something that we can identify with. I'll shut this door. Because I get loud and Miss Taylor's got glass down the hall. But y'all, I'm pretty sure y'all have drank Kool-Aid. You're of that age. But have you ever made Kool-Aid? Okay.
I've seen it made.
You've seen it made? So, okay. So you know about the process.
Simple.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. You've got a dry powder. Then you add water. And it tells you on that package how much water to add. Okay. And then you get the right concentration or the right strength. If you add too much water, it's weak. Too little water, it's strong. Sometimes too strong. If we were playing with it in here back a couple of semesters ago, I brought some little single Kool-Aid packets because they were pretty cheap. And we took a packet of Kool-Aid and put a half a cup of water in it. We got to draw almost a paste. So yeah, you've got to have the right amount of water. And the thing with the medications is that when it's in dry powder or when it's in the concentrated form, it'll tell you exactly how much water to add. Okay. So this one says contribute, all right, I'm going to see if I can make this work. My little pen going. I want the red. Right down here, it says constitute to 100 milligrams per milliliter. This is what we call our supply dose. Okay, so it tells us that, and then it also tells us down here with 4.8 milliliters of sterile water. So this is my diluent. It's easier to write in cursive on this thing than it is to my hand. So it tells me right there on the label, it's in the fine print. The 500 milligrams over here, this is the total medication in the vial. So that's in that dry powder, there's 500 milligrams of medication. Once I add the liquid, every milliliter contains 100 milligrams. Right. So if I go down here to answer my questions, it says, how much diluent will you add? Well, we know from up here that I'm going to add, I gotta get my thing up a little bit higher. 4 point, hang on. That's not what you were supposed to be doing. I'm still learning with this, so bear with me. We're going to add 4 milliliters. Oops. I'll get it down. It's 4.8 milliliters of diluent. Okay. I don't care that it's sterile water or it's biostatic water. I don't care what type of diluent is. That is something that you need in when you get into the nursing program, just that you can recognize how much diluent we need to add. So then the B part is, what is the resulting supply dosage? Well, that's what I was showing you right up here. The 100 milligrams. Where did my pen go? The 100 milligrams per milliliter. So down here for B, I'm going to write 100 milligrams per milliliter. And we still have our doctor's order. I hadn't talked about this, but it's 400 milligrams IV, and that's some of the first things we should have checked. This is for IV infusion, so it's the one I can give. I'll work one of these through the right way in a minute. This times 2 days means that he's only taken the Zithromax through IV for 2 days. We don't have to have that to answer these questions. We don't have to have that to calculate the dosage. All right, so if we scroll on down, what is the total resulting volume? When you're diluting or when you're mixing it and it's dry powder, if depending on, if you don't put enough liquid in it, enough of the diluent in it, then all it's going to do is expand your powder. Now, the powder is still dissolved, it'll still be a liquid, but it's going to expand. It's going to be a thicker liquid. Okay, so sometimes you've got to allow for that expansion. So my total volume may not be 4.8 milliliters. It could be more. So to find our resulting volume, I'm going to take, and it's going to be in milliliters, but it's the total medication in the vial, so total med over 1 times my supply dosage, but it's my same thing, dosage form over my dosage strength. Okay, so I'm going to go over here my full doses. We're going to cross this one out. Well, it goes to show I can't draw a straight line. All right, I lost my pen. So my total medication, I scroll back up here, is the 500 milligrams. So I'm going to do the 500 milligrams over 1 times then my supply dose, which is at 100 milligrams per milliliter. So 1 milliliter over 100 milligrams. Then my milligrams will cancel. I don't know what happened to that one. I got 2 zeros on bottom that will cancel the 2 zeros here. So I'm left with 5 over 1, right? So my total volume would be 5 milliliters. Now, the reason we need to know what the total volume is what if I needed to give 6 milliliters? This vial only holds 5 milliliters, right? I may or may not be able to use this. So, and when I get down, I kind of started teaching this a different way a while ago, but we'll look at the full doses eventually. But this E part, how many milliliters will you give? It's still still per dose. for one dose. And it's what we were doing in chapters 10, what we were doing in chapter 11. It's still going to be, we're looking for milliliters, it's going to be our doctor's order over 1 times our form, dosage form, over the dosage strength. And again, that's my supply dose this time. So my order is 400 milligrams over 1, and then times my 1 milliliter over 100 milligrams. So the milligrams cancel. My zeros will cancel. So 4 over 1 is 4 milliliters. So I've got 5 milliliters. I'm going to give 4 so I can give it out of this 5.
On D, with the 100, would that be 400 from the doctor's order? 400 milligrams worth on D?
No, that's still part C. I mean, D is, we're not doing D.
C is, okay.
C, yeah,
Okay.
because it's your total medication. Now, the full doses is going to use the doctor's orders. It'll be the total medication over the doctor's orders. And we'll do one of those in a minute. I'm still trying to figure out how to write again on this pad. All right, so let's look at number 2. All right, this is some ampicillin, 500 milligrams IM every 6 hours for a patient with pneumonia. So ampicillin, I've got ampicillin, so that works. It's an IM. This is an IM, so that works. My doctor's order. Okay, let's see if I can do that again. It's 500 milligrams. And then my total, why is this so difficult tonight, or this time? My total is 1 gram. This is the total medication. Now, if we look over here, and we kind of have to learn to read sideways on these. Since it's an IM, I'm going to look under here for the IM use. So we're adding 3.5 milliliters of diluent. And it says resulting solution contains 250 milligrams per milliliter. So then my diluent, part A, is 3.5 milliliters. My resulting supply dosage or resulting solution is 250 milligrams per milliliter. Okay. Now, I'm going to take this. Remember, our order is 500 milligrams. So I'm going to go down here to E, and we're going to work E first. So how many milliliters will you administer? So my doctor's orders was 500 milligrams over 1. And then my supply dosage, remember, is 250 milligrams per milliliter. So 1 milliliter, 250 milligrams. So my milligrams cancel. And you can look at it as 500 divided by 250, or I can cancel the zeros. 1 0 on bottom, 1 0 on top. And I have 50 over 25, which for me is easier to do. And it's 2 milliliters. So I'm going to administer 2 milliliters. So then I'm going to go back up here and look at C, okay? We don't always have to work C to know if I've got enough volume to be able to give the medication. So if I'm adding 3.5 milliliters, do you think I'm going to have enough to give a 2 milliliter dose? Yeah, because 3.5 is more than 2, right? So there's going to be enough solution in there. But if we want to check it, Then for C, I want to know my milliliters. And that's my total medication, which was 1 gram, times my supply dose, which is 1 milliliter, 250 milligrams. Now I'm going 1 gram to milligrams, so I've got to add a conversion. So I've got 1,000 milligrams is equal to 1 gram. Milligrams cancel, grams cancel. So I've got 1,000 grams on top, or 1,000 on top rather, and 250 on the bottom. And that's going to give me my milliliters. Cancel my zeros. I have 100 divided by 25, which is 4 milliliters. So yeah, I have enough for probably 2 doses. Now, let's look at how many full doses are in the vial. So we want full doses. And this is, whoops, not milliliters. This is full doses. So it's my total medication. This one's the easiest one to figure of all. Divided by my doctor's order. Okay. So my total medication is 500 milligrams. No, it's not. What was my total medication?
1,000.
Would be about, it's 1 gram, so it'd be 1,000 milligrams. Okay. Whoops. Back up here and choose my pen. So it's 1,000 milligrams over my doctor's order, which was 500 milligrams. So milligrams will cancel. My zeros will cancel. 10 divided by 5 is 2, so I have 2 full doses. All right, so questions yet? Part of this, the hard part is going to be knowing which formula to use when and what part, what am I really asking in the question? And I'll try to make it as simple as I can. But okay, so here we have ampicillin, 375 milligrams, and it's IM. So I've got ampicillin, and it's 4 in IM, so I'm good there. So then I've got to look under the 4 IM use. And it says add 1.8 milliliters of diluent. So there's how much diluent I'm going to add. Resulting solution contains 250 milligrams of ampicillin per milliliter. Okay. Now, use solution within 1 hour. That means that this solution is only stable for 1 hour. After 1 hour, then the medicine is not the same concentration. It'll destabilize, and I don't know exactly what happens to it when it destabilizes, if it loses its strength, its potency, or what it does. Okay, I just know that you have to use it within that 1 hour period, and whatever you don't use, you have to throw away. So then that's the reason some of these medications we have to know, or you have to know how to reconstitute and how to do all this, because the pharmacy is not going to mix it all together and send it to the floor, because the nurse may not be able to give it within that 1 hour. Because, medications may not, I don't know what time the pharmacy sends up the medications, but it could be a couple of hours. It could take the nurse an hour to get to that patient. It takes a long time to give medications to every patient on the floor. And if you're in the nursing home, you're going to mix all of your medications pretty much, especially the ones that are only stable for a few hours or overnight or something. Now, of course, my daughter, the one that's the drama queen, was a pharmacy tech. And she said that things like amoxicillin that they would have to send for an infection. They would give the oral to some of their patients, the oral solutions. Those are good for 7 days. The pharmacy would go ahead and mix those up and send them. But some of these injections, they wouldn't mix them up. You know, because you don't know when, you don't know when you're going to give them, and they're going to send enough for a whole week. I think they will make the delivery daily, but if it's a medication that's going to be 4 or 5 days, they'll send it as much, as much as they can when they can. All right, so let's answer my questions down here. Get down my page. How much diluent will you add? 1.8 milliliters. And then what's my resulting supply dosage? So that's where it says the resulting solution contains. That's the 250 milligrams per milliliter. Okay. And that all comes from the fine print or the small print. So let's skip C and D for a minute. How many milliliters will you give? So y'all should be able to do this part. So y'all determine how many milliliters you're going to give. The doctor's order is $375, by the way. You said 1.5 milliliters?
Yes.
So do y'all agree with her?
Mm-hmm.
Now, we can almost tell it's 1.8 milliliters. You can't see me pointing to the screen. 1.8 milliliters of diluent, 1.5 milliliters that I'm giving. So I'm going to have enough to give, right? But let's go ahead and just practice this one. I lost my pen. Let's figure out how many milliliters I'm going to have total. So my resulting solution, and this has a total medication, it's 500 milligrams. And then times my supply dose, the 1 milliliter over the 250 milligrams. And I'm going to have 2 milliliters. So I'm going to have a thick liquid, right? Yeah. Because if I'm only adding 1.8, I'm just thickening the powder. That allows for the expansion of the powder. That gives me the 2 milliliters. All right, so how many full doses? Okay. So we have the 500, which is my total medication, over the 375 milligrams, what the doctor ordered. 500 divided by 375. That's going to come out to be 1.3 repeating. So how many full doses am I going to have? One. You're going to have one full dose. Okay, so I'm going to ask y'all, do y'all like this better than the overhead, or do you like the overhead better? Or does it matter to y'all? They're both visible, right?
Yes. Which one do you like better?
I like this one because not overhead, but the document camera is so bulky and heavy, and where this is just a little bitty pad.
Yeah.
Doesn't take up as much room. And I'm not constantly having to move my paper up.
Right.
Or flip it over. Okay. So we have azithromycin, 0.5 grams. And it's IV. So I have Zithromax, and that's my brand name because it's got that little VR up there. And then it tells me that it's erythromycin. So it's the same thing. It's for IV use. My order's IV, so I'm good there. So I'm going to go over here. The company prescribing information, constitute. So that's the same thing as saying reconstitute. So constitute to 100 milligrams per milliliter. So that would be my supply dosage with 4.8 milliliters of solution of sterile water. Looks like we did this one a while ago.
I feel like they all start running together.
Yeah, they do. And with only what, 5 of you came in, so I've got 5 students in online and in here. I think y'all should, I don't think it'll take a whole lot of examples.
No.
All right, so how much diluent are we going to add? 4.8 milliliters. And make sure you always put that milliliter on there. And then what's my supply dosage? 100 milligrams per milliliter.
On the test, you want us to put the per milliliter part on there?
Yeah, for the supply dosage, yes.
You want us to write it out? Or just have to do
You put the slash or you write per, it doesn't matter, because they both mean the same thing. Okay. And this actually, since it's going to be an online test again, so I really don't know how to do, I could do a paper test.
Yeah.
But it's so much easier because then, y'all would be turning yours into me, they would be scanning theirs in. It's just easier to do an online and everybody scan their work in.
Yeah.
So this would probably be something along the lines of matching for some of it. I may get 2 or 3 questions out of this one, matching some of it. I may match, A, B, C, and D, and then say, okay, how much would you give on a different question?
If we're doing the whole matching process, you still want us to try our best to work it out.
Yeah, if you can. Some of it you can, like A, you're not going to work anything out because it's given. B is given. Resulting volume, if you can look at it and know without a shadow of a doubt, then you don't have to work it out. Okay?
Yeah.
But if you miss it, I can't give you any partial credit.
Right, so might as well just go ahead.
Right.
Okay.
But again, if you're confident in what you have, you don't have to work it out. Same thing with how many full doses, because I'm going to show you something in a minute, but you don't always have to work that one out to see how many full doses you're going to have, if you know what the resulting volume is and how much you give. Okay, so if we'll look, let's go ahead and do this one. How many milliliters will you give? All right, remember what's our dose? He's ordered 0.5 grams. And I'm going to go ahead and work it using the 0.5 grams in the conversion. But if you can look at 0.5 grams and say, oh, that's 500 milligrams, then you can do that. Okay. So I'll find my pen again. There it is. All right. So how much I'm going to give? 0.5 grams over 1. My supply is 1 milliliter over 100 milligrams, or my form over my strength. And then my conversion, because I'm going from grams to milligrams, it's 1,000 milligrams to 1 gram. So the milligrams cancel, the grams cancel. And then I've got 2 zeros on bottom, so I can cancel 2 zeros on top. And then 0.5 times 10 gives me 5, and then I have milliliters. Okay, now, I've got a bit of a dilemma though. I'm giving 5 milliliters and I'm only adding 4.8 milliliters. So I'm not 100% sure I'm going to have enough liquid. So this is where I want to double check. I want to make this, on a test, you're going to do it anyway. But if you're on the floor somewhere, this is where you're going to want to make sure that you got enough, because you wouldn't want to mix a bottle that you're not going to be able to use, or mix a vial that you won't be able to use. So my total volume, X milliliters. My total medication, 0.5 grams. That's not right. That's not my total medication. That's my doctor's order. My total medication is 500 milligrams. Over 1. And then times my supply dosage, my molar dosage form over my dosage strength. Milligrams cancels. 500 divided by 100. I hope y'all know that's 5. So I've got 5 milliliters, right? Okay. Now, how many full doses are you going to have? Well, if I've got 5 milliliters in my vial, I'm going to give 5 milliliters. How many doses am I going to be able to give? 1. So you can also look at it like that and just put 1 full dose. So you don't necessarily have to work that out if you've worked out your milliliters. Okay. Now, if it had been, I'm going to have 23 milliliters in my vial, and I'm giving, a bottle, let's say, instead of a vial, 23 milliliters in the bottle, and I'm giving 5 milliliters, then you probably want to work that out and only give your whole numbers, just to make sure, okay, I know 25 goes into 24 times, it's 23, so we'll have some left over. When you get on the floor, you'll be doing that anyway. But for the test, you can do it that way with milliliters. All right, so I'm gonna let y'all look at this one. I'm not gonna talk. Y'all answer through some of it, read it. I'll try to increase it a little bit. Okay, so how did y'all do? Not finished yet, or? Preston, did you get it too? Are you still trying to figure it out?
I wasn't writing it, I was just kind of like looking at all that
Okay.
stuff.
But you agree with it?
Yeah.
Are you- Okay.
Yeah.
All right, sorry, this is my lunch. Little bitty candy bars. All right, so any questions on it? You think you feel comfortable enough with it? Especially if you have the notes to go by for right now?
Still need to practice some more.
Yeah. Yeah, there'll be some homework up before I leave today. Okay, so I'm gonna skip these because these are the same thing until I get to right here. All right. If I can enlarge this one. Okay, this is Pfizer penicillin G potassium. It's an injection. There's 101 million units. And that's this right here, the 1 million units. That's the total medication. I'll change to green. Now, again, you kind of have to look sideways, but what this means is if I add this much diluent, then I'm going to have units per milliliter, okay? So if I had 20 milliliters, I'm going to have 50,000 units. Can't write over the screen. Per 1 milliliter, okay? A lot of people want to try to do this 50,000 units per 20 milliliters. Well, we're adding that much diluent, but it will always be per milliliter. So if I added 10 milliliters, I'd have 100,000 units per milliliter. If I added 4, and you notice they've got decimals in here, and I hate that with a trailing zero. But if I added 4 milliliters, I have 250,000 units. If I added 1.8 milliliters, I'd have 500,000 units. So this allows you to mix it to where you want it to. It's going to be best to give for the order that's given, okay? So for the best mixture. Now I've got this question set up to where we're going to work it out for each one of them, okay? How many milliliters would we give for each amount of diluent? So my doctor's orders up here is 300,000 units. But if I add 20 milliliters of diluent, then I'm going to have down here, right, 50,000 units per milliliter. That's my resulting solution or my resulting supply dose. Okay. So let's look at E. How much will we give? My doctor's orders 300,000 units over 1. And then 1 milliliter, 50,000 units. So my units cancel. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros on bottom. I can cancel 4 zeros on top. Then I got 30 divided by 5. 30 divided by 5 is 6 milliliters. So to get that strength of 300,000 units per, I'm going to have to give 6 milliliters. That's a lot of medication. But it's in IV, so I can do that. Okay. So let's look at what's our resulting volume. That's my 1 million units for my total medication over 1, and then times my resulting solution, the 1 milliliter over the 50,000 units. Units cancel. I have 4 zeros. I can cancel 4 zeros. So now I have 100 over 5, which is going to give me 20 milliliters. And then to do the full doses, I've got 1 million units. Over my 300,000. So cancel, 2 cancel. I got 10 divided by 3, which is 3.3 repeating. So I'm going to have 3 full doses, right? Okay. So I did the first one. I did 20. Y'all do number 10. Okay, so how do we do? Do we agree or disagree? I think y'all have this. What do y'all think?
Yeah.
Just practice trying not to mix up, like, the total med over the supply dose and the doctor order over something else.
Yeah. And that's the key right there, is to practice it enough that you know what goes where. And another thing that I've done in the past, and instead of maybe working them all out, because you can do the math, is like, okay, resulting supply dose, well, that's on the label. How do I get the resulting volume? I'm going to take my total medication over 1 times my milliliters over my dosage strength. And then how many full doses over a doctor's order. Just kind of fill in the blanks with words instead of actually doing the calculation. Now, don't do them all that way, because you really want to be sure you're doing the calculations correctly. But, you know, put the words in there, especially when you go to study for something like this. I had to do this in Cal 3. It had been 20 years from the time I took Cal 2 to Cal 3. I was very thankful I was teaching during that time, or I'd never survived Cal 3. But we had study sheets, and he would give us a question, and I'd say, okay, I would do this formula, or I'm going to do such and such, and I didn't work the problem out. Now, I had taken and worked that sheet backwards and forwards 20 times between Thursday afternoon and Monday morning, because the test was on Monday. But I had a sheet that had just what I was going to do, little reminders that I sat and studied before class.
So that you don't forget it.
Yeah, so that I don't forget that on this problem, I'm going to do such and such. On this problem, I'm going to do such and such. Because working it out will only take you so far, because then you get confused on this type of problem, I need to do this. This type of problem, I need to do that. You know, so that's a little key, and that helped me a lot all the way through grad school. I was 47 years old when I started my master's in mathematics. I had to teach an old dog new tricks to learn how to study for math, because undergrad, you just work problems. You can get it, you know, it's not that hard. But you get into graduate level math, and you've got to study that stuff, and you've got to know what to do when, because there's so much.
I try that trick too, because like I have really bad like test anxiety, and so sometimes it doesn't matter like how much I study. Like if I do a test, if I don't write down everything right then, but I remember throughout the test, I'll just forget. You know, so it helps a whole lot.
It really does. And I have test anxiety. I would get, of course, I did the same thing in English and history in undergrad. Math in undergrad came easy to me, but I had an awesome math teacher.
Yeah.
But when I got into grad school, or English and all of that, but I had to work out the problems, I had to do it, but then I had to do little statements. In grad school math, and I mean, you know, this is my subject, but I had to work at all of it. But I would get the test. This is how bad my test anxiety is. Dr. Meow, and I love him to death, he would let us have a cheat sheet. And it was, you know, 1 page of copy paper, and front and back filled with whatever we could think to put on it. So I had my cheat sheet, and the test came from all the tests before it and all the homework assignments before it, and you can get a lot on a blank sheet of paper. But I would still get this test, and I would still look at it and say, dear God, what have I got myself into? I can't do this.
Yeah.
And I would want to cry.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm sitting there, and then of course, I'd have to say a prayer, you know, keep me calm. I know you will give me the wisdom to do this, you know.
Yeah.
Then I'd have to find one problem I could work. And it wasn't always the first one, but one problem that I could match up to my cheat sheet that I could work. And then I could finish the whole test without a problem.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah.
That little extra boost of confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, even if I had other classes that we didn't get the cheat sheet in, but I still had to find that one question that I could work. And then I could take the whole test, but it didn't matter if it was the first test of the semester or the last test of my last semester. And then we had to take comprehensive finals, which was, we had 4 courses that were called core courses. We had to choose 2 of them. And what they are is they're like, my favorite one was complex numbers. And so we had complex numbers 1 and complex numbers 2. And our comps were over that whole course. We did 4-hour tests for complex 1. That afternoon, we did a 4-hour test for complex 2. Yeah. Talk about freaking out. I came out of one of those tests and said, Dr. Ingram, she was the chair. I said, what happens if we fail? Can we turn around and retake this test within a couple of weeks? I said, because I really want to graduate in August. This was in May. And she said, yeah. She said, if you, for some reason, fail, then we will let you take your comps over.
Yeah.
So, but it didn't matter. I passed the test, by the way.
Sometimes I wish for like tests, like they're really important to get the programs or to graduate. I wish they would let you take like one section at a time, like a week or something, instead of doing it all at once. 'Cause it's overwhelming.
It is. It is very overwhelming. And those comps were very overwhelming. All right. I just want to point some things out because you're still going to work these the same way, but you won't always get your information on the label. Sometimes it will be on a drug insert. Sometimes it will be in a drug reference guide. But this is a drug insert for this one. And all I did is I just copied it down and put it in a little box. But you still get the same information. It's still going to tell you, you have to kind of read through it carefully. My pen going here again. Where did my pen go? Okay. So it says, should be administered intravenously by fusion over a period of 30 minutes. Well, we don't need that. Concentrations between 10 milligrams and 40 milligrams are recommended. We don't need these numbers. However, lower concentrations may be used if desired. All right, reconstitute. This is where we need to start paying attention. Reconstitute vials with the appropriate IV diluent. After reconstitution, each 1 milliliter of solution contains approximately 100 milligrams of equivalent of ceftriaxone. And then, so this would be my supply dosage. But it says withdraw, dilute to the desired concentration with the appropriate IV diluent. Somewhere it says, I missed it. But you're going to look at your vial dosage or your vial dose size. So we have over here a 1 gram vial. So I'm going to go over here and this is, okay, 1 gram. I'm going to add 9.6 milliliters. If I add any more or any less, I'm not going to have the 100 milligrams per milliliter. Okay, so if I had a 250 milligram vial, so if this over here said 250 milligrams instead of the 1 milliliters, then I would give the 2.4 milliliters. All right, so you've got to pay attention. Sometimes it goes by vial size. Sometimes it goes by other things.
So the dosage size is the same thing as supply strength or dosage?
The 100 milligrams would be my dosage strength. So supply dose is your same thing as your dosage strength over your form. Okay. So it kind of goes by 2 different names depending on where you're at. It's your dosage strength over your form. And then these are just the same as the others that we looked at. So in Canvas, I'm going to quit sharing my screen. Under modules, where it always is, it's got the worked examples. So where I've worked all this out and uploaded it. So you can finish this worksheet or this handout at your leisure and then go back and check to make sure you have them marked the right way. And then, like I said, before I go home today, I'll have the homework up for, I think I've got homework for chapter 12 that I'll pull up. read chapter 13 before Thursday, because it gets a little bit intense. We're adding to what we already know. We're still using the same type of formula, still doing dimensional analysis, but we're adding some things to it. So from here on out, we're adding things to what we know. So I'm not going to say it's not going to get harder. It's going to get a little more complicated because of all the things that we add. So you don't have to pay attention. I don't work the problems like they do in the textbook. Textbook uses ratio and proportion. I use dimensional analysis. So you don't have to pay attention to how they're worked so much. It's just read the general information about them. Okay. All right. And I guess I'm done. Well, that sounded hillbilly. So I will see you guys on Thursday. Have a nice week.
Yeah.